Hello, Paul. Good to see you.
Hello, hello, Eddie. It's lovely to see you again.
So, we're gathered here in our virtual world to have our second chinwag, our creative chinwag. The first one we did was on Owen Barfield, which was a lovely discussion to have. This time we're going to be talking about the visionary William Blake, which is I know it's very dear to both of our hearts, is Mr. Blake, and we do
He,
like
he,
him.
he, he absolutely is.
Oh,
Tiger, tiger.
well, if you've got a mug, you know we've got the they've got the
I've
answer.
got, I've got a mug, so it's got to be.
Well, we drink deeply of his knowledge and vision. So yeah, so
Absolutely.
we're going to talk about absolutely incredible person there. I mean, do you want to say anything on that, Paul? I mean,
Oof. I mean, he means everything to me. He's a very powerful figure in in my life, really. I mean, can I've set his music a number of times, which we can unpack a bit today, if you like. But yeah, his art and his poetry touches me very profoundly, and as I know it does you. I'll
yeah,
say
yeah.
more as we talk.
Yeah, very
Mm.
much so. Yeah, I mean, we're going to dive deeply into his art, his poetry, and also really he was very musical. You know, his poetry is our songs. Really, that was how he wrote them. He would sing them.
Yeah,
So we're gonna unpack that and look at that too. But we're both creatives. Just to let people know who don't possibly know who we are. We are creative people, i.e., the way we make our living and our lives really is by art and music and writing too. So this is how we've dived into our lives and set it afire with volcanic lava of visions, really. So you can tell I'm dramatic. So
yeah,
this is where we're coming from, but we're also extremely interested in philosophy and discussion, and really we're interested in life. And so I guess both of us have been led into our quest for understanding and by the practice of our creative process, really. That's it. Do you think that's right, Paul? Or do you think?
yeah. I think one word of that is the imagination. The
Yes,
imaginal realm
very
is,
much
is
so.
the thing that we both connect with and are both fascinated with. And I think like the pole between two magnets, Blake was there, you're there, and I try to be there as well, where we bring into something otherworldly. We're like the intermediary of bringing something into fruition, and we don't really. I'm sure you probably agree. We don't really know quite the process or how we do it. I remember a brief story. One of my students once came to have a piano lesson with me, and she sat at the piano and she played all my piano album. She transcribed it all in her head and played it now. And it was quite a bizarre experience to watch myself play the piano. And it was a tiny little bit uh, close because she played it just like me. She's a wonderful pianist.
Yeah,
And she just interpreted one of my improvisations. She
yeah,
spent a lot of time and I was very close to it. It was kind of, I'm not sure whether it was good or bad. uh, it was just very close. Articulation, phrasing, and everything was just like me. And yeah, I was a little shocked, but it seemed a little close to it, because we don't get too close to it. So I was seeing all the chords and things. I was thinking, oh, that's B flat 87. Whereas I didn't think like that at all
yeah.
in the process of creating it. Anyway, I'm digressing a little, but yeah, that closer to it. And we're sort of the intermediary, we're the middle men and women who bring this thing that's not there into being.
Yeah, yeah, we sort of we reveal what is already there in a sense, but we co-create
Mm,
to help that realization happen. It's very hard
mm,
to put into exact words because language, as we talked about before, is quite limited in a way. Even though it's you know there are many words and there are many construction of these words to make tremendous sentences and knowledge through them. But but still, it does limit. You know, you can't quite put your finger on it, or rather the pen. You know, if you're going to use words, you know, write it down or even say it. So, I mean, that's the thing
Mm.
about Blake. He was, well, he used words and images, and not as a separate, not as two separate things, but as one whole. You know, to express this, and and I think part of trying to express this and do this led him deeper into things, and as he went deeper in, the world became bigger in a sense for him. I know that certainly happens to me when I create, and in a
Mm.
sense, you never get to the end. It doesn't narrow the passage; it widens as you walk along it, and it opens out more. And then, really, it's not a passage; it's a wood, and there isn't a
Mm.
path in it. It's just the woods. So you create your own pathway, or your own little space and haven in there. So that's what Blake
Mm.
did. He had one human lifetime to get down all the visions that he had, and whether he's still doing it now somewhere.
Well, I certainly feel his presence a lot, and the fact that he kind of, as he went through some of his sort of illuminated works, you know, he created his own mythology, didn't he? Essentially, really.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the thing. I mean, it is very convoluted and very difficult to understand. I mean, his last great epic illuminated book was Jerusalem, and it's about 100. I think it's 100 pages. So
Yeah.
so most of the pages have words on his writings, but it's.
Yeah.
I'd like to say it's not an easy read, but that's a ridiculously shallow thing to say. But it
Mm.
isn't straightforward. But of course it's not straightforward. That's why it's so great, because it's
No,
really confusing. It's chaotic, and I think
it,
chaos is a word here. And he has these opposites that are jarring constantly, which we kind of
mm.
avoid. But actually, the chaos is more of a reality, I think, of life in a way.
Yeah, and I think that leads nicely. You said the opposites, you know, to the songs of innocence, which could seem like quite a simple text compared to some of the later works.
Mm.
I think if you are rich in the imagination, there is a great deal of things to be apprehended uh, in the text that he writes, from the innocence to the experience, and the ones that link across, and the divine of the children, and the untouched of the children. You know that they are of Gaia, they are of the earth. It's just stunning. I mean, I read this stays at the side of my bed, and me and my son every night or two read one to each other. You know, and he's only nearly 8, and he loves to. It has to be when I start reading it. He goes, he has to see what it looks like.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like immediate. Like I start reading one of them, you know, Cradle Song, and he just, what's it look like? And he has to. It's that connection, not just the words.
The words on their own are they're beautiful, but knowing that he did an image to go with these words, when you know that, if
Mm.
you just read the words without the image, you feel that there's something missing. So it's like there's two twins and they've been divided.
Mm.
You absolutely miss one. And his images did actually go with his words sometimes, but not always. Not always. He would pick obscure
Right.
parts,
Yeah.
and he would illustrate certain things, and it's really quite fascinating. But if we look at the shepherd, shall we?
Oh, yeah. Let's have a look at the shepherd. I think it's probably worth saying people maybe don't know that, of course, he printed them all and he relief etched all these, so he was the one man businessman, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was quite amazing. I mean, I'll talk a little bit more about
Oh, please do. I'd like your
process.
insights on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll talk about. I mean, we'll look at these now, and then yeah, and then I'll chat about that. Should we put the
Hmm.
should we put the images?
Of the shepherd.
Yeah, the shepherd, and also the frontispiece of the Songs of Innocence. So you got the two together.
So so there you can see the two in front of you there.
Yeah, that's right. So, and as we can see immediately, just vibrant and beautiful, isn't it? I mean, you just look at it for quite happily and joyously forever in a way. I think that's the thing about great art and illustrative art. We can call it illustrative art, I think, in a way. But it could live on its own just as art work, But it gets your imagination going immediately. He's created these realms that you want to dive into. And so we got the frontispiece, the bit where he's got the shepherd and he's got his like musical horn and he's got the flock behind him with the angel above. And I think there's a poem that begins about, are you going to sing for us and your poetry for us? And then pretty much into one of I think, is it the shepherd, the first poem?
I think it's pretty near the front, isn't it? I don't know if there's the introduction which kind of lays everything out, and then that is the first poem. Yeah,
that's the first one in a shepherd. I thought so, but I mean
it's worth saying, Eddie, isn't it? He was a bit cheeky. He would change the order, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he didn't sell many of these, did he? Really? I mean, he's what you might term the sort of typical. Well, he wasn't starving, but he was really in his time. I mean, to say how well known he is now, it's quite incredible, really, to believe that he was not known hardly at all, apart from a few. He had a few supporters, didn't he? And a few people who helped him, really. But
he did have a few benefactors that helped him out, and there was a younger generation of artists that kind of
at the end
gravitated towards him towards the end of his life.
Yeah, but that was really at the end. That was the ancients. We'll talk about them near the end, but yeah, they but that was really at the end. So
I mean, But my favourite phrase is when his wife said, "I was always with William, but he was always in paradise."
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and his wife Catherine, was very devoted, and she was very good. She was a good colorist. He asked her to help her with a lot of stuff, and in the end, she was seeing visions like Blake. So and
the colours different, didn't they? So I've seen different. As far I might be slightly wrong, but I think there's about 24 known original copies of Songs of Innocence and Experience. But in certain, it wasn't that he coloured them different, all the time. But in a period in his life, they would have a certain colour, and then a certain time later, the colours would change a little bit. The wash that he would put over them. I find that really interesting.
As he went through life, and his colours of his life changed, the colours that he used,
beautiful.
But for other things were the same. So I can fully understand that, and I'm sure in musical sense, that happens with you, doesn't it? You layer certain things over of your musical styles of the past, I guess. So
yeah, absolutely. And so with the front panel, I just, like you were saying, with the shepherd, I love how the sheep are down. I mean, you would often use the sheep as sort of would you say, dare we say, a reference towards Christ?
Well, I mean, he talks about the lamb, doesn't he, a lot? And so, and associations with the lamb certainly tend towards that. I mean, he had a sort of hit and miss, shall we say, relationship with God and Christ, didn't he? So it is throughout his life. So very interesting. He was a very complex person, was Blake, and he had a lot of shadow, shall we say, but he also had sort of dual nature going on. He would change his beliefs in his writings, through time as well, and it's very obvious. He's documenting his beliefs in his work, and they would vary too. So again, very convoluted.
I almost think of him, but I mean, I don't think we could ever collaborate this, but almost like a sort of a Zen Buddhist in a way. Some of the things he talks about, or even the sort of Advaita Vedanta tradition. you know, he's very grounded in sort of awareness, and whether he, I don't know, and I don't know if you know, whether he ever came into contact with Buddhism or any Hindu, anything like that. I just don't know, but I always seem like he's like Zen sometimes.
Well, he was in
Some
the
of the
church
things.
of Swedenborg, wasn't he? At the beginning.
Swedenborg.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So that was very interesting. I mean, that's a whole another discussion. So well, possibly
The
got.
thing is, I mean, you could probably talk about, and like you say, we're only scratching the surface. We could talk about him forever, couldn't we? But for people who are new to his work, maybe this will help a little bit
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
just,
I
to
mean,
just let them go off and explore. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, yeah. It's but those two images of the shepherd and the frontispiece, the shepherd again, wonderful. And one thing I will say that so his writing, if you see his illuminated lettering
Yeah.
um, on the page, fits beautifully. So he was a very good writer, and the amazing thing was because he developed his own sort of printing process, and he obviously printed it, so he had to write backwards.
Yeah. It's astonishing, isn't it?
I mean,
Astonishing.
now we know that if you devote yourself to doing something, you can do it. So yeah, there's that's you. So you can write backwards and make it look beautiful and legible. Of course, many hours of work and perseverance, but also there is a mystical side to that. There's a magical wow, goodness me, that's
Mm.
incredible. And he's got there through diligence and work, but also that belief in him to do that. So, but it's beautiful. So the words on the shepherd are the
I'm just going
artwork.
to say, I never noticed before, like you said about the illumination of the words behind. Like, like they are slightly sort of, there's some colour behind the words, isn't there, that sort of make them glow almost in a way.
Yeah, yeah, it's very clever.
Yeah, very clever. Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, you're going to read the Shepherd. Yeah.
No, I'm not going to read the shepherd.
No, you're not going to read the Shepherd.
I'll read a
Not going to
different
read the
one.
Shepherd.
I'm gonna read, everyone can read that at home, but it's but the lettering is beautiful. It's the artwork as well. It really is illuminated. Um, it's absolutely stunning. So I mean, I'd suggest people get the book. It's a good one to start with, isn't it? The Innocence and Experience.
I think so. Yeah, it's kind of this. The child is divine. This innocence almost of this that they are connected to the earth, like we said. I think it's some of his finest work. In fact, the Shepherd is I've done a number of choral settings. The Shepherd is the most recent one I've set. Which I did a couple of years ago. It's not been performed yet due to a virus, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing it. But it's an easy one to set. We can talk more a little bit about some of the kind of regarded settings by John Tavener a bit later. But I kind of try and set it in that vein. In fact, using similar scales as well. Kind of attracted to the same kind of tonal centre that Tavener used for it.
Yeah. And do you want to talk about that? Do you want to do that one now? Did you?
I could play a little bit of the setting, I suppose. Yeah.
Hear that? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'll just, as I don't know it from memory, but I'm playing a choral score, which you can see on the screen now, and I'll just play a little bit of the tune. Yeah, so it's very easy to set. The words set themselves. I mean, it's quite a short poem. If you set it just like two verses as a folk song, it'd be done in 20, 30 seconds. So the challenges of a composer is to sort of drag out those words. So as people can see from the score, I do that a little bit. But yeah, I've set that one and Cradle Song. Probably a few others when I was younger, but they weren't very good. But I've always been attracted to Blake's work since I was a child.
So on that, when you set the Shepherd, the music there, how did you start with that? Was it the words that told you how the music was formed? What?
Yeah, I just look at the words, and then a melody forms that goes with the words. The first part of that, I'm on what's called a pedal point. For people who are non-musicians, basically keeping to the same bass note, and then eventually there is a change, which is musical trickery, but it gives a release because you're waiting for the release. Because how long can you wait on this pedal point?
Right.
And then it releases itself. But yeah, it's the melody came first, and then it was about how I would divide it between the choir. And a choir is not a democracy, but you have to make sure that there is enough there for the sopranos, the altos, the tenors, and the basses. So then you are balancing interest, because you don't want your players to not be interested, the singers, as in this case, else they won't give their best. So you're trying to balance that as well. Yeah, a very simple one, didn't take long to set at all. Took longer to, if you like, put the harmony between the choir, but the melody set itself.
And when you wrote that, are you? I know it might be a while ago, but are you visioning the people singing it? You know, the different members of the choir. Are you hearing that? And yes. If so, is that giving you a vision into Blake's world?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think so. It takes you right into it, and I've got the words up, and I've got the songs of Innocent Open if I'm setting something like that. I have a number of Blake paintings, not originals, in the house. So I'm always inspired by that.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate that my wife's a singer, so I might just ask her to sing a line. Just to see how it feels, because I'm no singer, and I'm not a soprano. That's a certain. So she can sing that for me, and I can see how that feels, particularly with that one, because the person I wrote it for, Graham, it was a friend of ours, Graham Gribbin. I put an organ solo in the middle, so it's specifically written for a friend as well.
Right, I see.
So that's quite a long organ solo in the middle as well.
So when you say you have the words, but you have the images as well to hand.
Yes. Absolutely.
Do the images then take you into his world? Do they influence how you write that music?
Yes. Yeah, because sometimes, and it might sound a little bit crude, this, I suppose, but I might see a tree with a number of branches, for example, and that might affect the meter. It might be drawn to 3 or 5. And so that kind of affects the way I write it. But I'm not very close to that in a sense, but I'll look at that, and it may influence the way that the piece, the meter of the piece.
When you said the branches or the roots, do you mean in the picture or in your mind?
In the picture, and then intuited into my mind, and then expressed.
So you're seeing that visual representation that Blake produced. That visual representation is then going into you in your heart, however it coming out, whatever it is. And you are then traveling in the realm that he has put there, but you are making it a bit of your realm as well. Is it a very visual?
I think that's thing? Yeah. I'm breathing it in and then breathing it out. But he has influenced me by the words and, as I said, the images as well. So yeah, it's all there. It's all the visual thing. It couldn't have one without the other. For me, anyway.
So do you think his visual artwork is powerful?
Yes, extremely so. And as you know, I've started this newer project where I've just basically taken some shots of some of his images and then just run them on a film in front of me at the piano, but then just improvise, but purely looking at the image. And that's just, again, an experiment and just something to connect closer to Blake.
Did that with ancient days?
The days, yeah, and another few that I've got prepared, which I'm going to do because I'm an improviser, so I don't plan it. I just run the image, and I do random zoom ins and zoom outs, and that just affects the mood of the music. And it's just, I mean, it's a thought experiment essentially. Really, it'd be lovely to do live on a big projection, of course, but it's just something. I'm just exploring a little bit, something new to connect even more to Blake.
Now we've gone down a lovely portal here. I don't know if you're aware of this, but you've gone down a lovely portal, and obviously I think very visually. So right now I've gone down into those roots, and I've zoomed up into his well completely by you telling me this. So are you aware of Blake being present now? This is probably, this is a question that's on the edge. Are you aware of Blake being present now as you are writing this or playing this music?
Yes. I'm very rich in the Vedanta tradition, which is that we are just a localized piece of consciousness and that he's not gone, and he's there. And so I wouldn't be able to put that into words very well. But I feel his connection. Very, 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 very profoundly so, and I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk about this drawing behind me in a while.
Yeah,
definitely will. But yes. I'll briefly answer that. Yeah, because I'm going to discuss it more in depth. But yes, he is the drawings and the writings I have done. Where he's involved, he is there. There's no question. He's there. And when I look at his artwork, he is there. But these worlds are there, and I don't think they're just his worlds. I think they are these havens that are in front of us.
Yeah, and I think that's what I mean when I say about it's like a Zen Buddhist. It's almost like it's something else that he's tapped into. All those great religions were formed in the Axial Age. It's almost like he was receiving that, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
This kind of thing of presence of like the only presence really is awareness, and he's kind of tuned in like a radio receiver, connected to that.
Yeah, very much.
And maybe you're just carrying on that. Sounds a bit on the edge, like you say, but it's not for us. It's not for us, but he's connected to that.
I said on the edge there, almost like it's strange that I would say that. Why would I say something like that? But we do that. It's it's our little way in. It's I say, yeah, this is okay for me to say this in a sense. But a lot more people are talking more openly about this, and I think that's a great thing. And I think creativity gives you the key constantly. In fact, you don't need a key because there's no door when you're creative. It gives you the permission, shall we say, to just wander in the wild, and lose yourself. But you don't lose yourself. What you do, you lose some sort of cloak of drowsy sort of, something that brings you down. That and stop expressing yourself.
You're sort of, due to society, we veil ourselves, don't we?
Well, yeah,
ourselves, if you like.
Yeah, it's a veil. We put a veil on ourselves. We have to do it in some ways just to be able to go shopping or something like that. There are certain elements, but then do we? That's a whole different discussion.
Another conversation.
In a sense.
Which we should have.
But this is what Blake does. This is what he does. When you go and look at a Blake, you go and enter these worlds. So you have to be prepared. You have to take your seatbelt off because you are absolutely driving at 1,000 miles an hour through this beautiful inner space of wonder. So he does that. He does that, and he does that in his art and his poetry too. Shall we have a look at Shall we move on to the next book? So the innocence, and then we'll go to experience. Should we look at experience?
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned them, and yeah. So I suppose the most famous one is the tiger, isn't it? I remember.
Yeah, the tiger.
That from being a kid. Yeah.
Yeah,
everyone. Speak a little bit about the tiger. Should we put the tiger up on the screen so people can see that?
Yeah, we can put the tiger. Well, we can put an image up of that. I mean, the image itself is people are sort of not criticised, but looked at his drawing of the tiger and gone, that's not very familiar.
Well, I'm glad you're here now, so we can talk about this. He said. So that's something. Yeah, because there's lots of stories, or did he see it in some catalogue or something? Isn't there? And is this the tiger? He said, did he ever see a tiger? What's your thoughts about this? I mean, he saw it here, probably. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. You know, I mean, we know what a tiger looks like, because we see it everywhere, don't we? Tiger this, we can put on televisions, go on the internet, we know what a tiger looks like. But then it was a very rare thing, you know, so they wouldn't, you know, so, but he did a few versions of it, and some of them, I think some of the ones are quite darker in the background. So again, a variety of versions, but it's for me, the thing about that one is the poem. The words,
yes,
they're absolutely wonderful. So if I may, I'm going to read a bit of it. I'm not going to read all of it, because I just want to look at the form that he used,
okay,
and also what he did with that form to create this wonder in this quite unusual poem, which is quite stunning. So so I'm going to read the first stanza.
Okay.
And I'll read that, and then I'll just talk about the form.
Okay.
So here we go. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? Wonderful. Now, what he's doing there, he's poetry has different forms. So there's iambic. Two of the forms are iambic and trochaic, I think it's called. It's a very hard word to say, but trochaic and iambic. And basically what that means, iambic means the second syllable is stressed. Trochaic means the first syllable is stressed. So if you think of it in like this, so iambic is da 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 da, and then trochaic is da 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 da. I mean, poetry.
If you were setting this to music, you would have to be careful that some of those words came on the downbeat, and so in music to people, that's like the start of a bar, and then there's certain times where that should be at the end of the bar as like a pickup, so that you get the second one, like we just talked about. Yeah. So I just thought I'd mention that. Yeah.
No. Well, this is the thing about his words. They should be read aloud. It's music.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
The form of words, they are music, and he would sing his stuff. He was reputed of singing his stuff, and that was part of his wonderful character. So he was quite an entertaining person. He had quite a wit, you know. So let's have a look at that one. So what's happening there? We've got the tiger burning bright. So we've got the trochaic. So your emphasis is on your first beat. So we've got tiger burning bright. And that continues until we get to the last line of that first stanza. So then we change to the iambic. Could frame thy fearful symmetry. Okay, so that's what we've got there. So, and this often happens. Shakespeare did it. Milton did it. So, and they were people he greatly admired, weren't they? Very much. I mean, Milton. Wrote one of his illuminated books was called.
Absolutely.
So, so very much so. So, let's go to the third stanza now, because I
Okay, right, yeah.
particularly like this one. And I'll read it again, and then I'll talk about it. It's really
Okay.
wonderful what he does here. I
Mm.
absolutely love it. So this is the third stanza.
Third stanza, yeah.
Yeah. And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet? Oh, brilliant. Now, what he's doing there, this is really interesting. So most lines have 8 syllables or 7 syllables. So they are they're called tetrameter.
Yeah, right.
8. But sometimes they lose the last syllable. So the 8th beat.
Right, okay, yeah.
It's called a weak ending. Not a
Right,
week
okay,
ending,
all right.
a weekend. So what you've got there is, you start off with your first beat is a strong one. And what shoulder and what art. Stressing certain words. But if we look at the last line of the third stanza, what he's doing there, he's stressing the first beat. So it's a trochaic again.
Mm.
And it's got 7 syllables there. So we've got what dread hand and what dread feet. Very clever. So he's bringing out, if you see, you've got what dread hand, then you've got the little and in the middle, and then what dread feet. So he's going what dread hand, what dread feet. It's so brilliant.
It is.
And so I'm going to quickly move on to the... Go on.
Yeah, I just want to say what I love is this use of the word what as well, like a hammer.
Yes.
What constantly.
Yes.
What and what. It's like, yeah.
He does that. He repeats certain words in his poetry because he wants to make an emphasis of it. And yeah, like you're saying, he's like hammering it in. And this is a perfect example of that. If we go to the penultimate stanza,
when the stars.
Yeah, when the stars. So
yeah, a particular favourite of mine.
and if we look, which bit am I going to look at? Let me just think. So the last 2 lines. So I'll just read the last 2 lines of that.
Please do, yeah.
So, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamb make thee? Brilliant. So, did he smile? Emphasis on the first beat. Did he smile his work to see? So, he's going, did he smile, his work to see? It's a question, And then in the next line, he's not questioning him. He's questioning whether it was him who did this. Him being God, I suppose, the eternal. So the third line on that was, I'll go for it again. Did he smile his work to see? That's a question. Then the last line, did he who made the lamb make thee? So he's not asking indirectly in a sense there. He's asking, did he really make the lamb? Yeah, he made the tiger too.
Yeah.
So brilliant. What a fantastic... He
yeah.
His poetry, he knew his styles, his forms, and the only way for him to do that is to say it out loud many times. And he did a lot of revisions on that poem.
Yes.
Because there's still the manuscript of all his scribblings out and changing. And it was in Rossetti, who was a pre-Raphaelite artist.
Yeah.
Loved Blake. He was a bit of a Blake character himself, almost, Rossetti. And he had his manuscript. It's called the Rossetti manuscript, named after him. But there's lots of where he changes different aspects of the poem in there. But this is the thing about Blake, you know, he's clever.
Yeah.
He's very wise.
No.
And it's beautiful to read something out loud like that and to really investigate it and get into the emphasis that it brings to certain words and meanings.
Oh, absolutely. It was lovely when you read it out. Yeah, and it's I love that bit. Did he smile his work to see? Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, while we're here, I could talk briefly about two of the probably most performed settings and beautiful settings by the composer John Tavener, who died a few years ago. So he set the tiger and the lamb. And so since we're at the tiger, we talk a little bit about the tiger. So I'll put the score up in front here for people so they can see the score. Now, you don't have to be, you know, we're not talking to the affiliated as far as musicians are concerned here, but it is worth noting that Tiger doesn't have any bar lines. So he doesn't use any specific meter, which is really interesting. Yeah, there's no time signature. And also, it's interesting what I was really drawn to. And I mean, I could start talking about what kind of modes and scales he uses, but maybe we'll not go down there today. I mean, it's a little bit too musical, I suppose. But he's using kind of a minor mode, and it's just the way that he kind of builds it. The tiger really builds. But to just cut to the chase, you talked about did he smile or work to see? And what I find wonderful is what Tavener does is at the end of the tiger, he just takes the lamb setting and puts the lamb setting in those lines.
Wow.
Which is really stunning. So basically, when he gets to that little bit that you've just read, did he smile his work to see? He uses the setting from the lamb. And I think that's just beautiful to tie the two in. It's a very insightful way of doing it. Exactly the same chords. He just uses Little Lamb. He just uses those chords. Not the first on the lamb, which I'll just put in front for people. The first part of the lamb is a little bit melodically ambiguous. There's some certain notes there, what we would call chromaticism. So you don't quite know where you are when the lamb starts. You're not home. But by the time he sets the words, gave thee such a tender voice, which is absolutely stunning. That then is taken to the end of the tiger, uses that in that same place. And the chords that Tavener uses are very very straightforward. I'll maybe not talk too much about that, but he has an E minor, then an E minor 7. He uses something called an A minor 9, which is kind of a floating chord. And I think the Tavener settings are just, if people haven't heard them, they should go hear them. And I'll make sure I put a little link to a couple of the choral settings below in this video so people can go have a listen to those. But yeah, I'm really touched by the Tavener settings. And I know you're a fan of some of Tavener's work, like the Protecting Veil and things.
Oh, I love Tavener. Yeah, and the Lamb, I've had that for many years. His choral works, Lamb and the Tiger, and I've had visions to them, I guess. And I mean, Tavener he's one of those English mystics again, isn't he? He's a bit like Blake. You know, he's one of those. There's a lot of incredible gems of creative people in England, really, isn't there? You know, and Scotland. In Britain, the British Isles. There's a lot of what I would term mystical creators that are, in a sense, timeless. Because Tavener's stuff is very, to me, it seems very old. Because of, I think he was very influenced by very old music. Am I right there? He
was certainly influenced by the Byzantine chants and things, wasn't there? Certain chant music, from the Greek tradition. And I mean, when I've done my setting of the Shepherd, I basically followed the same mode. It's almost like I'm writing it as if Tavener was writing it almost, but it's got my stamp on it, of course. But whether I thought that, I don't know. But I happen to just looking now at the same scale. I don't remember making any conscious effort, whatever conscious means, but I don't remember making a certain effort to do that. It just seems to have happened like that.
But that's the thing about being creative, that we have the we have this amazing landscape that has been from the past of creatives, and there's no way on this earth that we could ignore it, and that it's part of us. And of course we have previous wonderful people like Taverner, bless him, who passed away recently, and Blake. They're still here, and we are influenced by them, and we might not always directly know that, but subliminally, somewhere, they've poured into our body and our soul, and they've stained it in a lovely colour. So, with all the many other colours of the rainbows of these creative people, I am influenced by everything. Of course I am, but I am still me. I am still creating my unique work, but it'd be preposterous to say that I am not influenced by anything, or that it's not coming through my artwork. Of course it is, and also the spirit that comes through into my work and other creators' work comes from this deep source that we always search for, that Taverner wrote that music for, that Blake did those illuminations for, that you set the music to as well, that I
absolutely, yeah.
There's this deep source that comes through. So
yeah, and I think it's worth saying as well, he obviously had very beautiful parents who realised they didn't want him to go to school, did they? So he didn't go to school. He did a very long apprenticeship, didn't he? From when he was about maybe 14, I forget, for like 6 years. But I think that's really interesting, because he was what kind of a phrase that came around in the 60s was kind of what we call unschooling. That actually they need to cultivate an epiphany within somebody so they can find their own path. Yeah. And all the great people like this, like Blake, epitomise that really. This idea of not being taught something didactically, but being an autodidact and going out and grabbing it. And I think that's what I see with Blake. And if people, if you read the schoolboy in there, he's just saying, what those poor kids at school, what they're missing. They're missing the divine, they're missing the beauty. And I think his parents were obviously very aware of his amazing gift to draw. And they give him a free space where he could cultivate that. I mean, the key book, there's a book by Ivan Illich called Deschooling Society, and he says that actually, and I kind of side with this, I think it's one of the greatest existential threats to planetary survival is our education system, but that's another conversation. But I think the Blake, I think it was lovely what you said to me when we talked last week, when you said you'd love to write a letter to your school. Yes. Sort of explain some of the, misgivings and all those things. And anyway, let's get too sidetracked. But I just think Blake had that freedom, like all these great people, Einstein and various others. They didn't let schooling. Well, he didn't go to school, but the others that didn't let schooling spoil that. Because we're natural born learners from cradle to grave. That's what we're good at. But we get taught that we should only learn something for our jobs when we leave school. Yeah. And I think that's a hard thing to break off the shackles. And Blake talks about, doesn't he, with the doors of perception and all those kind of things. But I'll not get too much down, because we could have a separate conversation about it.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the art of the dialogue, isn't it? The art of the dialogue is to like a branching tree, isn't it? As long as we come back to a trunk, let's go up the branches and have a look. Come on, there's some exciting stuff up there, I mean,
absolutely.
Lots of buds leafing into new ideas and thoughts and feelings. So, I mean, Blake, he was in Westminster Abbey, wasn't he, when he was, he used to go in there and draw. And, that's possibly one of the influences in the sort of sculptural human bodies that he would draw. His drawings of humans are very sculptural. And also,
what an apprenticeship.
Absolutely superb to wander around Westminster Abbey and draw it.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we talk about a couple of other things, last year I went to the take Britain to see the biggest kind of Blake exhibition that had been around for a while. And I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but I got to Leeds train station as like an ultimate pilgrimage, and I sat there on the platform, and then around about 50 Huddersfield Town fans came, and they'd had a few drinks, and it was only 8:30, you know. It was very loud, and I was like, oh, this is like, you know, this is something I've been looking forward to for months. So I asked the train driver, I asked the guy in the train if I could sit somewhere quiet, and he found me a quiet spot. But then when I travelled down there, the train was new and it had electric doors. So I went to the toilet and I couldn't shut the door because the button didn't work. So the door wouldn't shut. So I had to quickly go to the loo and hope for the best to come back out. And then 2 ladies went to the toilet and they came back and they didn't go to the toilet because they were scared because the door kept opening itself. And all I could think about was Blake. You know, I'm going to see Blake, this great visionary who was saying the scientific, you know, this reductionist scientific method is going to be our downfall. And I could just see these poor ladies who were bursting for the loo but didn't go because of our new technology, you know. And anyway, and I had this brilliant experience of seeing all those great Blake works. But I just thought I'd fit that in because kind of he was with me there laughing.
Yeah. I would imagine that it would make a whoosh whoosh noise, and he'd probably do a song to it, no doubt.
Yeah,
but he was quite a wit, you know.
Absolutely,
I think if you do go deeply into the divine for your creation, you've got to have a sense of humour, because it helps you to see it more, because you don't get too bogged down by it in a way. I think you've got to see the fun side of things and the comedy of things. I'll slightly digress for a moment into the Lord of the Rings. Now, I love Tolkien.
Oh, you can do that.
Well, the character in the Lord of the Rings that was infamously left out of the films. But understanding,
I haven't seen the films. Oh, who was this then that was left out of the film?
Well, you know, I mean, the films are nice, but the books are great. But Tom Bombadil, who is an amazing character, he would be a fantastic discussion. Anyhow, but very briefly, he was like an ancient of Middle Earth. You know, where did he come from? He was one of the first people, you know, in these lands, or the first spirits, presence, whatever. But the hobbits take the ring to him, you know, this great thing of power, you know, that between good and evil. And he sees a ring, you know, he's a jolly guy, he wears yellow boots and he sings. He reminds me of William Blake a bit. He sees a ring, he looks at it, and it's serious, you know, everyone knows about the ring. And he sort of laughs, throws it in the air, and it disappears. Because in a sense, he is divine. He is sort of the male Gaia in a way. He is of the land, and he knows that this is serious, this ring. But he also knows that there's greater things in life too, and there's other things in life. And if you are too serious about something, you can often lose your way. And so it is good to sort of laugh at yourself. Not being negative. It's lightening things, because in the lightening of something, it means you can fly better. It's like a bird suddenly. It can fly, you know, whereas it's too busy searching on the ground, you know. But by lightening, it can fly into the air, you know. So
absolutely, that, you know, like, yeah. I mean, I think it's worth saying, you know, as a musician, I'm fortunate enough to sometimes do various recording sessions, pop sessions, and, you know, we're just playing. It's just, there's a lot of tea drinking, a lot of munching, a lot of recording, a lot of like, oh, let's get that. Oh, what's that? Let's try that. And there's a lot of play. It's play, really. There's so much play going on in a day, and it's not like most people's work where they go in an office. We're creating, so we're trying different things, and we're free to try, and we'll throw lots of things, and not all of them will stick, but we still do it in a fun and humorous and enjoyable way, you know.
Yeah, you got to play.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
I play the piano. I don't work the piano.
you
I work the piano.
I dance the pencil on the paper.
You do. I've seen you draw a circle, sir.
Yeah.
That's something I can't do.
Well,
So yeah, should we talk a little bit? Maybe to just sum up with a couple of other bits. Would you like to?
what should we? Well, shall I talk about the art? Should we talk about
Hmm.
because about? Well, I did the drawing behind me. I did a
Yeah,
bit.
let's talk about that. Which everybody should have this book. It's wonderful.
Oh yeah, yeah. So basically, I did a book that was published uh, a year and a bit ago, end of 2019. It's called The Visions of Albion. So I won't really talk about it. Actually, if you go onto my YouTube channel, I do lots of storytelling on it, and it's on my website.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I've seen some of those. They're fabulous.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. But William Blake is in the book. So and I think should we put the images up of the free William Blake, shall we say?
Yeah, let's put the three William Blakes up.
We'll
Yeah.
put those up. So the central one is my drawing. So, and then on the left side we can see a portrait of, they think it's a self portrait of William Blake.
Yes.
And then on the right hand side, there's one of his visionary heads. This is absolutely fascinating. So I drew my picture inspired by the self portrait that he did. You can see I've used the same sort of egg shape that Blake is in there, and you can see his coat too. I've done very similar look, everything about it. So I've used that quite strongly just to influence me, because I need to know his physical characteristics as well. But obviously, I've embellished it, and as I was drawing that, it's quite amazing. I was really connected to him, and it was quite it was very strong, almost daunting at some points to actually draw him, because I was revealing him from the paper. So, and I've used elements of stuff that he would use in his drawing. So he's got wings behind on mine. They're actually stylized wings. He would often do angels, etc. So I've tried to use a bit of style in there. Also, if you go down at the bottom of the picture, there's a portal. So there's the doors of, like the doors of perception into this world, into his heart, into his soul, into his down there, and also the shape that sort of frames it is based on one of his flowers. He did very stylized flowers in his drawings, so that's got an element of that in it too. And I always think some of his flowers almost look like swans in a way. Again, that's me seeing something that isn't necessarily there when he drew it, but that's the power of art. It leads good art. Leads you into an imaginative state yourself, and then you can voyage into different realms yourself.
And you don't touch it too much, so you don't maybe know sometimes, like we said earlier, and you don't want to get too close to it, like I said. So with you, it may just come out, and you don't question it, do you?
No, I don't question it. It's meant to be, I sort of. It's funny because it's I'll sketch and work out, and sometimes it seems very arduous to get there. It's very hard. But then sometimes it goes bing, there it is. So it's a mixture of that. It's a mixture of walking through different terrains, some difficult and some very smooth and easy. And then
can I ask Eddie, just before you carry on, so did you do that as a rough sketch first?
Yeah.
Or did you go straight? Yeah.
Yeah, so I have, when I do an artwork, I always have a vision sketch first of all. So something might happen, or it just comes to me, and I'll scruff out these tiny visions, roughly in pencil. They can be very small, a few inches, not very big, and they might not lead to anything. I might do a series of them, but the sort of like helping me get somewhere. They're like climbing up a cliff face in a way. And maybe I only need one of these drawings and I'm at the top and I can see the perspective that I'm after. Or it might be that I have to climb many
Yep.
visions upwards
Right.
to get what I want. So yes, that and then I'll refine it afterwards, you know, and then so a lot of the intuition is in that first sketch. So what then we got on Blake's head? We got these eyes. So again, it's the third eye.
Yeah, like the third eye. Yeah.
But if you look at the other drawing, this is one of his visionary heads that he did later in his life. He did this actually. It's got a title. He wrote. I think he wrote the words underneath. I think it's called "The Man Who Taught Blake Painting." That's what it's called. And so it's a visionary head, and they were called visionary heads. And what he did, he hung out with a guy called John Varley, who was a sort of astrologer, artist, and phrenologist. Yeah. I don't know if you know what phrenologist is, but a phrenologist is someone who would observe or feel someone's head.
Right. No, I didn't know. Right. Okay.
So they feel the skull and see what kind of psychological attributions and feelings they have in that head, you know, and whether they could sense the divine. And obviously, John Varley thought that Blake would be perfect, and Blake had quite a bulbous forehead.
Yeah.
He was a very striking looking person. And so what they would do, they would gather and they would communicate, you know, with the spirit world, and Blake would let these visions come into him, and he would draw all these visions, you know, historical characters, kings, for instance, and also he did like, you know, the flea. It's a very famous, made into a famous painting in the end. They did the head of a flea.
It's in my in the kitchen. That.
Yes. So that's amazing. So the head of a flea is like a humanoid head. So he let these visions come in. So, but if you look at that drawing of the visionary head by Blake, in the center again of the forehead, it's almost like there's a tree, a knowledge, just something coming out. So that's the third eye, perhaps. So that inspired me there, and also the sort of topography of the forehead as well inspired me. So there was these two really inspired me. So what I'm doing now, I'm looking at a realistic self-portrait of Blake and a visual self-portrait of Blake. And isn't that amazing that these two, so he saw himself both ways. And the visionary head appears in some of his other work as well, very similar to that. So I think that he was, you know, that was a symbol for him, you know, when he would draw very much like that, and that appears, like I say, in some of his other artwork. It's really fascinating. But there's to draw that was quite something.
It's a favourite of mine from your book, along with Tolkien, but that's for another conversation.
We'll talk about that. Can I just on that one now, before we finish on that point, I'd just like to read a tiny bit, because not only have I drawn Blake and wrote about him, but this book also has stories in that I've written as well, because I like to mix, you know, fact and fiction, because I feel like they both have the same truth, and it's just a different way of
I don't think there is any fiction.
Or fact. So at the end of the book, there's a story that involves some of the characters in the book, but I'm just a very small bit. So basically, I have just walked up Primrose Hill in London, which is very famous for Blake.
Yes.
And it's only a couple of sentences, and it's about when I encounter Blake at the top of the hill. So I'm just going to read this.
Please do.
He was a small man with a very large brow, and a mane of white receding hair that fell to his shoulders. He wore a high-collared brown coat and held a tall, dark hat. His mouth was strong with a likeable and mischievous curl to it, His eyes, though, are what drew me to him most, as they were large and seemed to hold the universe in their pupils.
Beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful. Stunning.
You know, when I wrote that, and even when I read it now, I'm there with him. It's incredible. So using creativity has connected me with Blake. I can be with him, and I'm happy to say that I can be with him using creativity and imagination, which is a deep experiential knowledge.
And I think there is a little line that I wrote from In the Marriage of Heaven and Hell, where he says all deities reside in the human breast.
Yeah. Great.
And I think somewhere else he said Christ is the imagination.
Yeah. I love Heaven and Hell. It's one of my favourite ones, actually. But yes, he was. We can connect.
I think it's one of his greatest works, actually. Anyway, but yeah, people should read that as well. That's beautiful.
Oh yeah, read more.
The world we live in is shaped by what people imagine, and people should bear that in mind. That we live in an imaginal world created by a number of people who decided that we should live out their imagination.
Yeah. That again, that's another conversation. I mean, we went into a bit of that, didn't we? When we talked about the Barfield in the previous.
A little in the previous video. Yeah, I'll put a link below on mine, and you do on yours as well for that.
People can check that out too. So great. So anything else do you think on something we haven't? I mean, the thing is, there's all this artwork as well, isn't there? So should we just finish with a couple of?
Yeah, should we? Because we could talk for weeks, couldn't we, about it? I'm always reading a Blake book.
Oh yeah.
I was just gonna. Something came up when you were talking. Was when I went to the Blake exhibition. There was a lady there drawing all his paintings, and I said, "Are you not taking pictures of them?" Joking. She went, "No, this is the best way."
Yes. Yeah.
And I actually have a couple of images which I'll just share with people now. I took some pictures of her drawing the Blake, so I'll share those with people now.
Nice. Well, the best way to learn about something is to draw it.
That's what she said. Exactly those words, Eddie.
Oh, that's excellent. Oh, well, there you go. I like her. So, yeah,
She was obviously an artist like yourself, and she just had. Well, people can see from the images there, met their own thoughts about that.
Not just about artistically, it's good. Best thing to do is to learn to draw something to really understand what it is, and I don't just mean artistically, because Goethe. Famous German.
Another favourite.
Yeah. Poet, scientist, amazing person. But he went around to find the ideal plant, the plant symbol of everything, and he would draw to observe, to perceive, because when you draw something, you really see it as it is, but also. You are creating what it looks like as well, so you're perceiving it from your heart, not just from, a visual viewpoint. There's a lot of things going on there, but you are actually really seeing it as well, and it's absolutely fascinating. So I'd highly recommend to anyone just learn a bit of drawing skills, simple things, and go out and draw things, because you really see them beautifully then, and the knowledge that comes to you as you do it is phenomenal. And also, if you are an artist too, drawing another artist's work is a great way to learn. There's a great I can't remember where I read it. It's many years ago, but there was a writer, I don't know who it was, but the story is there was a writer who adored Ernest Hemingway's work, and I do too. Right. He's a great writer. And he wanted to know how Hemingway worked, in a sense. So what he did, he got one of Hemingway's books, and he got a typewriter like Hemingway would have written on, and he copied in one of his novels entirely. He just wrote it all out to just get into the head of it. I love that. I've always loved that that little story, because I think that's great. You to understand an artist, if you and I guess that's with music as well. You know, you play over.
Yeah, I will always encourage my students, if there's a film, you know, if they like Miles Davis, or just play along, work the solo out, and get inside that thing. If you want to know what it is, just immerse yourself in that phrasing and learn it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you kind of embody them, don't you? In a way, you go into the soul of that person.
And I mean, I've not encouraged them to be imitators, but if they want to learn that phrasing, and then they can see, oh, he uses this note here, which gives this kind of feeling, and then they can intuit that and then create it themselves, you know, at a later date.
But also they're going into it, aren't they? They're going into that, you know, they're taking on these hands, and they're seeing the spirit, and how he danced on the keys, and where this music came from. You know, that's the thing, and that's with the art. You know, you're copying the artist. You're seeing how they did the line. So, they were very graceful with this curving arc here. Pencil kind of stopped here. You know, they're embodying the physical embodiment of it as well. You know, so it's very, very, very important. You know, and it's wonderful. Great way of learning.
Oh, beautiful! I'm glad I mentioned that. That's been really insightful. That. So, should we finish with a couple of images? You say then? Should
we look at a Dante?
Yes. Am I right in saying this would be Blake was in his bed, kind of frantically drawing these, wasn't he, at the end of his life?
Yeah, it was end of his life. He loved Dante. Who doesn't?
Yeah, I mean, I adore this. This is the edition I have.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many we could choose from that. He didn't actually finish them at all. He most of them are in watercolor or pencil. I think there's a few etched, but he was going to etch them all and print them, but he didn't get time to do it. Bless him. He moved realms before he could finish it, really. So
he did, yeah.
But they're still beautiful, and there's so many we could choose. I just randomly chose one. Should we? I'll put that on the screen.
Yeah, let's put that on the screen. Yeah. So talk to me. So this goes with the opening canto, doesn't it? From Dante's Divine Comedy.
Are you going to read a bit?
Yeah, I could do. Just a minute. So I've got there's various different editions, of course, and translations. So I've got so many translations. My son always says, not another Divine Comedy book. You've got to know that. But this is the one I tend to like the most, which is the Mark Mercer one. This is that one there. I'll just show people that and then put the image back up. And the opening line is, midway along the journey of our life, I woke to find myself in a dark wood, for I had wandered off from the straight path. Yeah. And the translation in my other book is slightly different. I could read that if people like. Midway in the journey of our life, I came to myself in a dark wood, for the straight way was lost. And then if we put the image up there, if you'd like to talk a little bit about it, Eddie, that would be wonderful.
Well, I mean, I will talk about it. I'd also like to hear you talk about it. I'll start, because, you know, it's good to have different perspectives as well, isn't it?
Yeah, but mine's probably cruder because of
I don't know though.
If I went crudely, there's the light and the dark for me. That is just looking from the outside. It's like, oh, I could go on this journey, or I could go back to what I know.
Yeah.
When I look at that, you can see the lightness in it, and then there's the three creatures. I'd love you to talk about them a little bit. But I find Dante even more relevant today. Is, you know, I went right, and maybe I should have gone left. Or I went left and I should have gone right. And I think Dante's asking us to question the things, because life isn't known. It's actually unknowable. and I think it's a profound work, and I'm trying to grasp the Divine Comedy. Have been for about a year or so, and just I'm enjoying it, reading the canto every day. And so, yeah, if you'd like to talk a little bit about the image we have in front of us.
No, I want to ask you what you meant by dark and light. Do you mean pictorially?
The colour, yeah, the colours. So the side where Virgil and Dante are is light. It seems darker on the right-hand side.
Well, and if you look, very interesting. So you got the beasts on the right, the wild beasts. They're coming into the picture, yeah. And so the figure is running away, but he's facing them too. Then you've got the figure floating in from the left too. So you've got this lovely balance going on. And what is really interesting, if you look in the centre of the picture, what do we have on the horizon? We have the sun. This amazing thing. So is it rising? Is it setting? But he used a lot of the sun in his work. He was very obsessed with it, the sun. So
yeah.
So you've got all this. You've got dynamism in that picture. But the interesting thing about you saying about the dark and the right, you've got the three strong beasts coming in, and they're quite heavy, aren't they? They're quite sturdy. Just coming in. So it feels like a wall of fierce force coming in, isn't it? And and he's got his arms out, and they've both got their arms out in different ways too. So I'm looking at this picture now and saying these things as I look at it. I haven't looked before and thought of this. So Blake is showing me this wonder here. And so when we look at art, great art, we can spend a long time in it and see many different things, but also things that maybe Blake wasn't conscious of doing. But
yes,
it was. And I get that when people buy artwork off me, look at my art, they will tell me things that they see. It's personal to them. It's wonderful because I go, I didn't know that, and and I'm happy to admit that. I can't. I can't paint something that answers every question. That would be pointless and terrible piece of artwork. What I do is paint something that creates more questions in a way. I don't want to paint something that's finished. I want to paint something that's a beginning in a way, a beginning of a world. Not. I don't want to reduce it down and say this is what the world is. No, I want my paintings to say, "Whoa, this is a way into a world."
Yeah, and it's not words, and that's good.
Yeah.
And of course you can, and you've helped me a little bit with this. You can then look at all the different other artists who have tackled the Divine Comedy as well, and that's just fascinating to see what they see.
Yeah. Very much. Yeah. So. I know we both love Doré, don't we?
Absolutely, yeah.
Doré was a superb illustrator.
Stunning.
Just have a look, everyone.
everybody should. Yeah, absolutely. But that's what I saw. The cruel thing was the light and the dark. As I said, that was something that I thought, and I think it's just so relevant today, where we do one thing, but how can we be certain that by choosing that thing because of the evolution of consciousness, to go back to Barfield, are we making the right choice? How do we know we're making the right choice?
Yeah.
And that's what I love in Dante, when he goes right, well, maybe we should have gone left, and various things unfold. And, and I think it's very telling in the time we're in now.
Yeah.
So we finish with one more, did you say? Would you like to?
Yeah, should we look at...
probably one of his most famous ones. It's on... it's in our front room. So should we put up which is attributed as being the Newton?
Yeah, Newton. We'll put Newton on. Yeah.
I mean, there are some circles that say it might not be Newton, but I think maybe we'll go with it being saying it is Newton. But
yeah, let's say it is.
Let's say it is, but with a footnote that a few people have. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah.
Yeah. So put the image up now. I think we've put it up, haven't we? Yes.
Yep, put it up. We have indeed. Yeah.
Shall I just describe it? Talk about
Yeah,
it?
describe it, and
Yeah.
I'll look forward to
Well,
that.
I mean,
Memory.
this is Newton, and he is depicted at the bottom of the sea, and he's
Yeah.
on a beautiful rock. You know, we've got the lichen and all sorts of gorgeous stuff on it, anemones, etc. So beautiful, but he's unaware of it. He is
Mm.
focused on what's in front of him and what he's drawing, and you know Blake didn't like Newton. He didn't know. Well, we none of us
No,
about Newton, the the other side of Newton in his
no,
God, etc. That was only revealed not very long ago. But
no.
Blake did not like Newton because he thought of Newton as reducing basically the universe yeah, to a very reductionist view. And
I mean, and this is an area we could have a big conversation about now, that this kind of empirical scientific reduction
yes, very
view,
much so.
and we could talk more about that. And I think Blake was a forerunner for that and saw that
Yeah,
very
yeah,
profoundly. Mm.
very much so. I mean, so Newton's just he's looking at what he's doing. You know, this he's trying to map the universe in his drawing. Very simple, you know, and
Yes.
also Blake, as you can see from Newton, Newton wasn't a muscly sort of guy, but
No.
you can see Blake's artistic style there, and he was very influenced by Michelangelo, for instance. And we talked about, you know, when he was in Westminster Abbey or what he drew, etc.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
a lot of his figures are actually quite androgynous as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yes, yeah, absolutely.
but again, what Blake did with his figures, he liked the outlines. Outlines were very important to him. So I think the process of this picture was quite complicated. He would do the I think he did the background and he would sort of merge the colours together, and then he did the figures separately and somehow put it together in this sort of alchemical magical way that he did for his printing.
Mm,
I'm not quite sure exactly how, but you can see that Newton is almost detached from
yeah.
the beauty of the
Mm.
land that he's in, you know, and he's
It's
not.
almost like it's almost like he's unmoved by the water as well.
Yeah, well, he is the solid rock, and
Yeah.
what he sits on him is a living and breathing life, isn't
If you know, if this is fabric down the side of him, it doesn't seem to be moving
it?
as something would at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, so it's very fascinating. I mean, he was very stylized, was Blake, in his figures as well, but he often had
Mm.
very beautiful movement in them. You know, I know a lot of them are you know very what's it, expressive in their bodily movement too. You know, like we were just seeing in the Dante watercolor of the two figures, very expressive. So,
Mm.
but Newton's quite, you know, he's together, isn't he? He's like clammed up in a sense.
Mm.
And yeah.
Can I tell you about me? My son's favourite bit is to spot the triangles. So if people have a look, there's the triangle of whatever he's measuring. There's a triangle in there. His fingers are are making a triangle shape. Both of his hands are making triangles.
Exactly. And there's a few more triangles too.
Tell me where you spot more.
Well, again, if you look in the body, in the muscle, you have triangles in there too. So
Yeah.
notice I did this. We use certain shapes and we put shapes in different areas to sort of harmonize the picture a little bit. I suppose in a sense like music, you would have certain
certain things happen at certain time. Yeah.
So you have that. So yeah, there's triangle. Yeah, so he's he's trying to fit everything into a triangle, including himself.
I mean, when I saw that painting, I spent quite some time next to it.
yeah. And I think there's a lovely quote. Well, Blake is full of quotes, isn't he? Really, but one I think fits this quite quite well. The Mind Forged Manacles. So yeah, so he is doing that. You know.
Yeah,
He's
I think so.
doing himself to his mind, to his intellect.
Yeah, absolutely. And we could talk about him all day, all week.
Very much so. Yeah, very much.
We do. we've talked. If people have made it to the end, well done. We've talked a long time.
Yeah. I think that might be. I think a good way to draw this discussion to a sort of chaotic open end. Because
and maybe we'll come back again and talk maybe about some of the other works.
Yeah, or certainly bring him into future discussions, you know, even if it's not particularly on him. I mean, Blake is such an amazing person. And the thing is, you know, everyone can easily access his work. It's all there online. You can see all his images very easily and read his poetry. But, you know, a good, if someone's going to get a book, the Songs of Innocence and Experience are a lovely way to start, aren't they?
Absolutely. A little bit. So that's a great place to start. It's a bigger book, of course, but it's the complete kind of illuminated books. I mean, it's just stunning to see them in there.
That is amazing. I mean, but also look online for his artwork as well, because you know he did a lot of artwork that wasn't part of his illuminated books.
Absolutely.
So it's really worth seeing, and the Dante drawings are exceptional. And the Book of Job was one of his last works, and that is it's black and white. They're just beautiful etchings. So I highly recommend that. But just put William Blake in search, and you'll see so many.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't touched upon his most famous words, have we? From the preface of Milton, isn't it, the Jerusalem, and we could unpack that. Everybody knows that. That could be a separate discussion in itself. The dark satanic mills, and Yeah,
there's so much. I mean, there's
so much
done. So, but it doesn't. I mean, the thing is about these discussions is just to dive into something and then talk from the creative viewpoint as well. So we're not really giving you this is what Blake did, and from he was born then, whatever, etc., etc. It's more about how we see him and how he inspires us, but also how he is still current now and alive. He's still alive, still producing this inspiration in different forms.
Absolutely, forever. Yeah, beautiful. Well, that was lovely, Eddie, to talk with you.
Oh no, I love that, Paul. It's great discussion. It's great talking about something we love, isn't it? So
it is.
Yeah, so
just knowing when to end.
Yeah, very much so. So well, great chatting to you, and I hope everyone enjoyed watching it. And look out, we'll be doing some more discussions at our creative chinwags, won't we? We'll think of something next, won't we?
Yeah, I've got some ideas.
All right, Paul. Well,
all right, Eddie. Bye for now. See you later. Bye bye.